The first mirror of time is a star named Sun.
Our sun. 1,000,000 times smaller, a planet revolves around its star, Sun. It is the planet called Earth.
Our Earth. The Earth spins like a top basking in the light from the sun.
Its movement through light and darkness turns day into night.
One complete revolution of Earth around the sun is 1 year.
One complete rotation of Earth on its axis is 1 day.
We divide each day into 24 equal parts. 12 hours for the day and 12 hours for the night. But why 12?
It's because of the moon.
The moon does not produce light. All it does is reflect the sun's light. The waning moon slips into its last quarter, lit by the sun.
As the new moon, it is shrouded.
7 more nights to reach the next quarter. Another week, and as it has millions of times for millions of months, the full moon shines once more like a lamp in the night sky.
$5,000 ago, in the Middle East, the first astronomers thought that by building very tall towers, they could pierce the mystery of the stars. In Babylon, they found the movements of the moon very useful for dividing time into short periods. By counting the number of days between 2 identical phases of the moon, they noted an average interval of 30 days, and by rounding off the numbers a bit, they identified 12 lunar months in 1 year.
12, like the 12 of our clocks. Modern reminders of the Babylonians who first began to count time.
12 moons multiplied by 30 days equal 360. The perfect shape, the circle divided in 360 degrees. So using the moon, they measured a year of 360 days.
However, the more time passed, the more inaccurate their clever calculations proved to be. A lunar cycle lasts not about 30 days, but precisely 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 2.8 seconds. No matter how they juggled the numbers of days and months and years, they couldn't make moon time and sun time work together.
To set up a calendar, it was essential to choose the right mirror of time, the moon or the sun. It's not hard to count the days between 2 full moons, but calculating the number of days in a year from the sun is another matter.
From ancient times, farmers have needed a sure way to measure the length of the seasons. Each year, the waters of the Nile transform the desert into fertile fields. The ancient Egyptians had a mythological explanation for this fertility. They believed that it came from Osiris, the god of the river. After the harvest, Seth, the god of the desert, would drain the waters from the river, and Osiris would die.
But Isis, the goddess of fertility, would find her beloved's body and hide it in the grasses of the river. Then, magically, she would become pregnant by him. Each winter, at the full moon, Seth would discover what Isis had done. To be rid of Osiris forever, Seth would cut his body into 14 pieces and scatter them all over Egypt. But Isis would track down every piece of his body. And in the spring, she would embalm it to prepare his return.
There is a day each year when Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, peeks over the eastern horizon moments before the rising sun Horus, child of Isis and Osiris. One year, this dawn phenomenon occurred on the same day as the Nile began to rise, signaling the return of Osiris, god of the river and conqueror of the desert. The coincidence was so striking that the Egyptians began to count all over again.
With the star, Sirius, to use as a fixed point, it was simple to measure the length of a year by counting the number of days until Sirius appeared on the horizon once again. In Egypt, a year calculated by the sun lasted not 360 days as in Babylon, but instead 365 days.
The calendar was now a mirror of the seasons of the sun.
In summer, at noon, the sun's rays are hot because the sun rises very high in the sky. 3 months later, in autumn, the sun does not rise as high on the horizon. In the winter, the rays are not as hot because the sun stays at its lowest point in the sky, even at noon. It's not the distance, but the angle of the sun's rays that determines the seasons of the year.
If the Earth's axis were perpendicular to the sun, the seasons would never change. The seasons exist because the Earth is tilted on its axis in relation to the sun. An angle of 23½ degrees. As a result, over 1 year, the vertical rays will travel between two parallel lines situated on either side of the equator, the tropics. In the north, the summer begins at the June solstice, when the sun is over the Tropic of Cancer. Since the seasons are opposite in the two hemispheres, in the south it's the beginning of winter. 3 months later, the sun's light falls directly on the equator. It's the September equinox, the start of spring in the south and autumn in the north. Three months after that, at the Tropic of Capricorn, it's the December solstice, the beginning of summer in the south and winter in the north. The cycle of the seasons continues as the sun's light moves back north, crossing the equator at the March equinox. In another 3 months, the sun's rays will hit the Tropic of Cancer, the first day of summer in the northern hemisphere. 2,200 years ago, in Egypt, the sun revealed its deepest secret at the bottom of a well.
In Alexandria, where the River Nile empties into the Mediterranean, the kings had commanded that all books entering the city be seized and copied. The great library of Alexandria contained all the knowledge of the world since the beginning of time. Eratosthenes, a Greek geographer and mathematician, had long sought to show that the world was round. One morning, an assistant brought him a parchment seized on a boat from the village of Syene, far south on the Nile.
It said that once a year, precisely at noon on the first day of summer, a shaft of sunlight struck the bottom of the well in Syene. Eratosthenes knew that on the same day, at noon, the obelisk of Alexandria cast a shadow on the ground. The distance between Syene and Alexandria had been known for a long time. Eratosthenes asked for a calculation of the obelisk's shadow. The angle measured 7 1/5 degrees. Eratosthenes began with the idea that the sun is situated far away in the sky. All lines perpendicular to the circumference of a circle pass through its center. Because the sun is so far from Earth, all its rays are parallel to one another. Therefore, at noon, the ray of sunlight that touches the obelisk is parallel to the ray that hits the bottom of the well in Syene. Since two parallel lines which are intersected by another line always make two equal angles, the angle of the obelisk's shadow is equal to the angle between Alexander and Syene, 7 1/5 degrees.
360 divided by 7 1/5 degrees makes 50. So multiplying 50 times the distance between Alexandria and Syene gives you the circumference of the Earth. Eratosthenes had proved his point. The Earth was round. 4 centuries later, another grand idea came out of Alexandria, one that held sway for 1,500 years.
The astronomer Ptolemy described a planetary system in which our Earth was stationary, at the center of the universe. The idea wasn't far-fetched. That's how it looks, especially at night.
Lost in the middle of the stars, it seems to us, even today, as if we on Earth are at the center of an immense sphere that includes all the stars in the firmament.
A universe inhabited by mythical figures, the constellations of the heavens.
And moving across the night sky on the same path the sun travels by day are the 12 constellations of the zodiac.
Taxi!
2,000 years ago, someone was having nightmares because of his old calendar. Imagine, in ancient Rome, the length of the year was decided by a vote in the Senate. Not surprisingly, Julius Caesar wanted a new, more reliable calendar. His good friend, Cleopatra, had promised to send him the best astronomer in Alexandria, Sosigenes.
For Sosigenes, the solution was simple. The Romans had to go back in time and dust off the old 12-month solar calendar of the Egyptians. With a slight alteration.
By this time, the Egyptians knew that a solar year did not consist of 365 days, but more precisely, 365 days and a quarter.
The new calendar was simple. After 3 normal years of 365 days, the lost quarter day was recovered with a leap year of 366 days. Here then was the Julian calendar, the brand new solar calendar of Julius Caesar.
beginning of the year was moved from March to January, named for Janus, the god of beginnings.
Next comes February, the shortest month, a time of purification before the spring and the return of March, named for Mars, the patron of Rome.
Then comes April, the goddess of love. May, the goddess of growth. And June, the goddess of maternity.
Poor Julius didn't live to see July, named in his honor. Augustus, his successor, would take over the next month, August.
Then September.
The Latin name for the 7th month.
October.
The 8th.
November.
The 9th.
And December.
The 10th.
Which kept their original numbers from the old Roman calendar year that began in March.
But highlighting the stately progression of the sun, the moon, and the stars are bright sparks roving across the sky. Who are these heavenly hobos?
They are the planets of our solar system. After naming Sunday for the sun, the Romans named the other days after the planets. Some of the English names evolved from the Norse counterparts of Roman gods. The planet nearest the sun is Mercury, a god also known as Woden. Woden watches over Wednesday.
The brightest planet in the sky is Venus, the goddess of love, also called Freya. Freya presides over Friday.
The moon monitors Monday.
The blood-red planet Mars, the god of war. His counterpart, Tu. Tu rules Tuesday.
Great Jupiter, the thunderer, god of gods. Thor, the Norse god of thunder, reigns over Thursday.
Saturn, the last planet known to the ancients, governs Saturday. Saturn, the god of time.
But for the ancients, the Earth was still the center of the universe.
After the fall of the Roman Empire, the Christians officially adopted the Julian calendar. These new masters of the world got it into their heads that the Earth was not round but flat. And for 1,000 years, there was no arguing. The Church of Rome claimed to know everything, the exact date of the creation of the universe, as well as the precise hour of the end of the world.
However, other more curious women and men sought to discover the surviving knowledge of Alexandria. These new scholars soon knew that one solar year does not last approximately 365 days and 6 hours, but exactly 365 days,
5 hours,
48 minutes,
and 46 seconds. Back in Rome, the calendar borrowed from the emperors was moving too quickly. Every year since Julius Caesar, the Julian calendar got ahead of the sun by 11 minutes and 14 seconds. In 1,500 years, this small annual advance had accumulated into 10 full days.
Others were already announcing to the whole world, the Earth is round and the sun is at the center of the universe.
And so, in 1582, 10 days were dropped from the calendar year to resynchronize the Julian calendar with the sun. In Rome, the day after Thursday, October 4th, would fall on Friday, October 15th.
And ever since, to avoid the same error, every 100th year is a leap year, only if it can be divided by 400. descendant of the Egyptians, heir of the scholars of Alexandria,
child of Caesar, the solar calendar of Pope Gregory XIII, the Gregorian calendar.
our calendar.
Our mirror of time.
Now, what is time?